One UI 9 Beta the 5th of May look like a small update, but some of the most interesting changes are the ones Samsung doesn't immediately show you. There are new interface tweaks, hidden settings, important bug fixes and improvements that can make the Galaxy experience feel noticeably smoother. But is Samsung finally getting One UI 9 ready for the stable release, or are there still problems hiding underneath? Today on Tech Insights, we're taking a closer look at everything that matters in One UI 9 Beta 5. Before watching, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, so you can get notified about daily tech updates. Let's start with the update itself. One UI 9 Beta 5 is mainly a refinement release, so you shouldn't expect a completely redesigned interface. Instead, Samsung is concentrating on polishing the software and fixing problems reported in earlier beta versions. That is actually a good sign because when a beta reaches this stage, stability becomes much more important than adding unnecessary features. One of the first things you may notice is the small visual changes throughout Samsung's apps. The Samsung Health widget now has a slightly different background treatment, giving it a more transparent appearance. It is a tiny change, but when you compare the same wallpaper on two different builds, the difference becomes surprisingly easy to see. The clock app also gets a visual adjustment. Its background now uses a different gradient compared with earlier versions, giving the application a slightly fresher appearance. This isn't a huge feature, but Samsung continues to make these small design changes across One UI, and together they help make the interface feel more consistent. Samsung Internet also receives a subtle interface improvement. In the tab management area, some menu sections now have different background treatments, making individual options easier to separate visually. Again, this is not something that will completely change how you use your phone, but it shows Samsung is continuing to polish the smallest details. Now let's talk about the quick panel, because this is where One UI 9 has already made some of its biggest interface changes. Samsung has been refining the way controls behave when you interact with them. In Beta 5, some controls transition more directly into their related settings instead of simply closing the quick panel first. That may sound like a tiny animation change, but these small interactions can make a huge difference to how fast and polished a phone feels. When an interface responds immediately to your actions, the entire phone feels more responsive. There are also additional controls available when you customize the quick panel. Some system functions, including security and privacy-related controls and accessibility options, can be added more directly. This is useful because instead of opening settings and searching through multiple menus, certain functions can be reached much faster. But one of the most practical additions is hiding inside settings. Samsung has been improving the support and diagnostic experience, giving users easier access to warranty information, troubleshooting, device diagnostics and repair-related options. If your phone suddenly starts behaving strangely, you no longer have to guess whether the problem is software or hardware. The diagnostic tools can check different components and sensors on your device. This can be particularly useful if you notice problems with things such as the camera, speakers, sensors or other hardware. Instead of manually testing every function, the phone can guide you through a series of checks. And this is one of those features you might completely ignore until you actually need it. But when something goes wrong with an expensive smartphone, having built-in diagnostic tools can save a lot of time. Samsung is also focusing heavily on bug fixes in Beta 5. One issue that has been addressed involves the Settings app freezing or displaying a blank or white screen in certain menus. That kind of bug can be extremely frustrating because Settings is one of the most important parts of the operating system. There are also improvements related to the camera widget on the lock screen. Earlier beta versions could sometimes take too long to launch the camera or display a black screen. Beta 5 works on improving that behavior. Samsung has also addressed issues involving the phone app, My Files, the home screen, video editing and photo editing. Some users experienced incorrect positioning, blank screens or flickering in certain situations, and Samsung has been working through these problems. Wi-Fi stability has also received attention. Connection problems can be especially annoying because they often appear random. You might have a perfectly good router and still experience disconnects because of software. Improving Wi-Fi reliability is therefore one of the more important fixes in an update like this. Now comes the question everyone wants answered: does One UI 9 Beta 5 actually feel faster? The answer is yes, but the difference isn't necessarily something you will see in a simple benchmark number. The Galaxy S26 Ultra already has extremely powerful hardware, so what matters more is consistency. Open an app. Close it. Pull down the quick panel. Switch between applications. Open the camera. Return to the home screen. Repeat the process several times. That is where software optimization becomes noticeable. A good update isn't necessarily the one that makes one animation look faster. It is the update that prevents random pauses, stutters and strange delays from appearing throughout the day. And Beta 5 feels much more focused on this type of optimization. This is also why I wouldn't judge One UI 9 Beta 5 purely by the number of new features. Samsung appears to be moving toward the final stage of development, where fixing problems is more important than adding experimental functions. Earlier beta builds introduced many of the major One UI 9 changes, including quick panel customization, accessibility improvements, security enhancements and other system-level changes. Now Samsung is refining those foundations. There is also another important factor: battery life. With beta software, battery performance can change from one build to another. A feature might work perfectly but consume more power in the background. Another update might improve standby time but introduce a different problem. So far, the most important thing to watch with Beta 5 is consistency. If your phone remains cool during normal use, maintains good standby performance and doesn't drain unusually fast, that is a much better sign than simply seeing a high benchmark score. And that brings us to the biggest question: should you install One UI 9 Beta 5? If this is your main phone and you depend on it every day, I would still recommend caution with beta software. Even a mature beta can have unexpected bugs. But if you already participate in the beta program and enjoy testing new software, Beta 5 looks like a much more polished build than the early versions. The biggest improvement isn't one massive new feature. It's the feeling that Samsung is cleaning everything up. The animations are being refined. Settings problems are being fixed. Camera issues are being addressed. Wi-Fi stability is improving. Samsung's diagnostic tools are becoming more useful. Small visual changes are appearing across the interface. And when you put all of those improvements together, One UI 9 starts to feel much closer to a finished product. That is what makes Beta 5 interesting. At first glance, you might think, that's it. But after using the phone and paying attention to the small details, you start noticing how many little things Samsung has changed. And honestly, that is exactly what I want to see from a late-stage beta. I don't need Samsung to add 20 more flashy features just for the sake of having a longer changelog. I want the existing features to work properly. I want the quick panel to respond instantly. I want the camera to open every time. I want settings to remain stable. I want Wi-Fi to stay connected. I want animations to remain smooth. And most importantly, I want the final One UI 9 release to feel finished from day one. One UI 9 Beta 5 appears to be moving in that direction. Of course, there is still room for improvement. Samsung needs to make sure the final build doesn't introduce new bugs while fixing the old ones. Battery optimization also needs to remain a priority, and Samsung should continue improving consistency between its own applications. But overall, this beta gives us an interesting preview of where One UI 9 is heading. It isn't about completely changing Samsung phones. It is about making the existing experience better. And sometimes, those are the updates that users notice the most. So, if you are using One UI 9 Beta 5, tell me what you think. Does your Galaxy feel smoother? Have you noticed better battery life? Are there still bugs that Samsung needs to fix before the stable release? Drop your experience in the comments. This is Tech Insights, and if you enjoyed this One UI 9 Beta 5 review, make sure you subscribe for more Samsung updates, hidden features and Galaxy tips. The stable release is getting closer, and there could still be a few surprises waiting before Samsung officially finishes One UI 9. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.